Well, welcome friends to another seminar in our Club Leadership CLT series for District 7080. I want to welcome everyone online for this evening. We got a great event on the topic of membership growth, and we're so delighted to have some special guests presenting tonight. And I know that from my previous experience working with these two individuals at other events, we're in for a real treat with lots of information and inspiration on how to grow and strengthen our clubs. So for those who may not know me, I'm past District Governor Doug Vincent. I'm on the training team for the district here, and it's my pleasure to host tonight's event along with Suzanne Zimbinden, who's going to moderate the chat and the questions and answers part of it. So also want to welcome our District Governor-elect Brenda Halloran, who is in charge of all of our incoming training for pets and club leadership for the coming year. So just a reminder that we ask everyone to keep on mute to ensure that we have no background noises, barking dogs or horns or partners or kids yelling at us. And then when it's time for the Q&A, Suzanne will invite you to unmute your microphone. You can do that by pressing the space bar actually, and hold down the space bar. Toggles on your mic, and then when you let go, it shuts it back to mute. So Suzanne will moderate the Q&A at the end of the session, and we do have chat enabled, so you can type in your questions there. Please keep your conversations to essential content and preface your question by uppercase bold letters question, or if you just have a comment, just type in uppercase bold letters comment, so that it's easier for Suzanne to isolate those in the future when we're taking those questions. So the meeting is being recorded, just so you know, in case you didn't hear that notice, and it'll be available on the district website in the training section within a few days for those who may have missed parts of it, or if you want to refer it to your other club members, please do so. So now it's my pleasure to introduce our special speakers tonight. And in the interest of giving them maximum time, I'm only going to give you a few points of their extensive bios, but I have loaded their complete bios on the District 7080 Facebook community page. So I invite you to go and read the full bios on them there. And I will just give you a few simple points in the interest of giving them maximum time for the presentation. So I've worked with Steffi in the past, a great choice for our international president starting in the year 2024. So we're looking forward to that. But back in 1991, Stephanie joined Rotary, and she's a member of the Rotary Club of McMurray, Pennsylvania. She's participated in a whole list of global grant projects. She's been on polio NID, so she's been very active on the international service side of Rotary. And she's currently helping to partner United Nations and United States clubs and districts with Kosovo and Ukraine clubs to provide humanitarian aid in those areas of need in that part of the world. Of course, she served as a Rotary International Director, a Rotary Foundation trustee, and she's been on too many Rotary International committees to mention. And as I said, she's going to be our RI president in 24-25. In terms of her career and her vocation, she's got a doctorate degree in leadership studies. She's got a background in higher education and consulting and in the entertainment industries. She's had numerous awards and recognition that you can read about for her community and international activities. So Stephanie, welcome so much, and we appreciate the time you're sharing with us here tonight.
My pleasure, Doug.
Okay, and I'll go on to introduce past Governor Tom Gump. Tom has inspired and helped many new clubs around the world. He's got some creative ideas that he shares, and I know you're going to hear about some of them tonight. He's helped form a Rotary Community Corps for refugees in his home state of Minnesota, and he's been recognized with the gold level in Membership Society, bringing in 50 new members, or even likely more by now, into his club. And he's also a member of the Rotary International Membership Growth Committee. He's got all sorts of tips and articles that he's written for attracting and retaining members, published worldwide. and he inspires us not only with his ideas and his presentations, but here's a guy who walks the talk, and he's inspired us and motivates with his own results at many Rotary events to grow Rotary membership. And as a sidebar, as DG, Tom led his district in several Rotary Foundation achievements. He's a well-recognized TRF donor and also has many achievements that he's received in terms of recognition. And he's the recipient of the prestigious Citation for Meritorious Service for Rotary Foundation, and also the esteemed Service Above Self recognition from Rotary International. So, and lastly, Tom is well connected to Stephanie because he's going to be her presidential aide, and he's already on duty, I guess, in the planning stages during her term as 2024-2025 president. And of course, in that role, he's also involved as an advisor to the Calgary Convention, which will be in 2025. So thank you so much, Tom, for joining us. And we'll now turn it over to the two of you to give us all the secret recipe to growing and strengthening our clubs.
Okay, thanks so much, Doug, and family of Rotary. We're so delighted to be with you tonight. You know, say what you will about technology, but look at us. We are connected from places all over the globe, and that's one of the gifts that we did get from technology when we were forced to think about how to stay connected. As Doug mentioned, Tom and I are going to talk with you tonight about membership and growing it and thinking about it. You know, why are we still talking about membership? You know, we've been doing this for a couple of decades because we've all heard the same statistic that we've had 1.2 million members, 1.2 million members, 1.2. We just seem to be stuck at that number. So membership is Rotary's top priority because we are a membership organization. So the more members we have, the more service we can do. And the less members we have, the less service we can do. So we do want to talk about membership, and I want you to know that regardless of your position as a Rotarian, whether you have a title as an officer in your club or district, or whether you are a member, this information is for you because all of us are on Rotary's membership committee for our clubs and our districts. I also want to tell you that before we get through the end of this session, you'll recognize that what we're talking about really refers to both Rotarians and Rotaractors. We have about 1.2 million Rotarians around the world, but we also have about 200,000 Rotaractors. And as you know, in our last Council on Legislation, Rotaract was elevated. And so now it really becomes part of our membership strategy. So we're going to talk about all of Rotarians and Rotaractors. There are only 3 ways to grow Rotary. And we're going to talk about each of them. The first one is by attracting new members. And this is the majority of what we will all experience because most of us on this call, if not all of us, are in something called a legacy club. Legacy clubs are not going to go away. They are what brought Rotary to the table. They're the reason we are here. Legacy clubs are the clubs that typically are formed and they meet 3 or 4 times a month, and we have, you know, our traditional activities. We recite the 4-way test, we apply for global grants. Legacy clubs are here to stay. But what's important to know about legacy clubs is that we all are on a track for attrition in legacy clubs, and I'll explain that a little more as we go. So what that means is if you're content with where your legacy club is in terms of members, okay, so we have 60 members and we're big enough, and you don't do anything, the bad news is eventually you will go away, because built into every legacy club is the idea that we're going to end up losing members due to life events or, you know, something happening or people passing away. The second way that we're going to talk about growing membership is by engaging the members that we have. You know, too often Rotary has been cited in the past couple of decades as being an organization with a revolving door. You know, we bring them in and we don't seem to have a problem with that, but a year and a half or 2 years after, they end up leaving because they don't find the value in the experience. So we want to talk about how do we engage current members so that they do end up staying. You know, they've been attracted to us and they come into this magic of our organization, but how do we make sure that they stay engaged? And the third way to grow members is by simply forming new clubs. Sometimes in our legacy clubs, it's not possible to continue to grow, or something happens, or we find that, you know, a club is not producing the right kind of value. So it behooves us to take a look at, is there another way? Do we expand our reach as our action plan suggests and find out a different way, a new way to bring Rotarians or non-Rotarians into this magic and create something different? So Tom, talk to us a little bit about club culture and that whole experience and why people leave Rotary.
Well, thank you, Stephanie. And Stephanie's absolutely right. There's only 3 ways to grow Rotary. But it's interesting. We found out through surveys over the last few years that the #1 reason why people leave their Rotary clubs, now they're not leaving Rotary International, they're leaving a club, and they're leaving, they tell us, because of the club experience. So laying over all 3 of these is the club experience. And why it's so important, Stephanie's right. We get a lot of members in every year, but we lose a lot. In the average year, we bring in about 165,000 Rotarians. And last year we grew a little bit, but most years we lose more than we bring in. And the scary part is when we lose those members, we actually lose 52% of our membership within the first 3 years of them joining. And the really scary part is we lose 10% within the first year that they join. So last year we lost 19,000 individuals who came into Rotary and left. So when you're attracting these new members, you got to make sure that you have a club that actually has a good experience, a good culture. So when you bring them in, they stay. So Stephanie, do you want to talk about a club membership team?
Well, I can. So if you're looking at membership, as I mentioned earlier, you know, it's more than your membership chair. When I visit clubs and I say, who's on the membership committee, and one hand goes up, I get completely worried because every hand in the club should go up, because our role as Rotarians is to share the experience of Rotary with others and to help to continue to bring in members, as well as to help develop strategies for continuing to keep members in the club. So we really have to do a couple of things. We have to identify how do we begin looking at membership. So we have to understand the data that's available to us, and actually how do we access that so that we can take a look at our club and determine what kind of health it's in. We also have the job of promotion. We really need to be better at telling the story and supporting our club members. Sometimes we give this training to district leaders, but it's important that we give this training to everybody in the club, because we want to build on relationships. And finally, it's important to have goals as a club, because if you don't have any goals, then it's just a wish. It's just a wish to get more members. So you really have to have goals, which means you really have to have a plan. So let's go to the next slide, Tom, and we're going to talk about building the team in your club. Now you can do this based on different areas, different ways. You can do it by focus. You can do it by geography. If your club, the club is located in an area that's large, or you can do it by other activities. But in general, you really need to have 3 positions in your club membership team, in your club, that focus on three basic areas. One is member attraction. It's important that your club be attractive so that people want to come in. You also have to have people who work on the engagement. Because remember, we talked about bringing people in and keeping them. Think about your own business. Where would you be if, half of the people that are your customers end up walking away after a year? That's not a great way to sustain business, nor is it a great way to sustain a Rotary Club. And then also developing new clubs might be another thing for your club to think about. Our COL in 2016 opened the doors for us to think about other ways to help our clubs grow by attaching satellites or other kinds of club models to what we're doing. My club in McMurray, PA recently decided to add something called an impact club, an impact model to our group. Impact is a club for people who don't like to go to meetings at all. So twice a month, the people who are in this group go out and do service. They work at the local food bank, they work at local senior centers, or they find parks that need to be cleaned up. They decide what the service projects are. They pay full Rotary dues. They are full members of our club, but they do not come to our club meetings. They do come to our socials. And then once every 6 weeks, we have an evening called Pizza, Beer, and Rotary, because we realize that they're not coming to meetings. So we want to help engage them in developing some depth in Rotary. But the fact of the matter is, they don't come to meetings. But when we inducted these people, on the night we did the induction, our club grew from 40 members to 55 members in one night. Think about how long it would take your club to bring in 15 members at a time like that. So for us, the impact model made a lot of sense. In addition to those ways, you may want to think about focus areas. Maybe in your community, you may want to have a subcommittee that looks at alumni. Who are people around your area who have been part of Rotary in some other way? Or you may want to focus it on DEI. I often say to clubs, take a look at your community. And if your club membership mirrors your community, you have a handle on the future. And if not, you have an opportunity. So maybe a subcommittee on DEI to identify underrepresented groups would make sense. And finally, as I mentioned, it might be by geography. Maybe your club area covers a great territory. So you may have a subcommittee that works in the north, and one in the south, and one in the east, and one in the west. And so you can be creative, and you can think about other ways that you can develop the committee that works for membership. So Tom, do you want to talk about key responsibilities in club membership?
Absolutely. So just to underscore what Stephanie said, one thing that ran through everything she said is you want a team. Sometimes you use the word committee, sometimes you use the word team, but it's interesting because up until last year, so many clubs have a membership committee of one person. And Shaker Mehta, when he was president, he turned that idea and that concept on its head and made all of us, like Stephanie said in the beginning, all of us are responsible for membership. So that's important to think about as we move forward. So when you have your team, and we like the word team, nobody really likes to serve on a committee, but everybody wants to be a part of your team. So when you have your membership team for your club, what you need to do is you need to look what's going on. You need to analyze the trends. If things are going down in your club, then maybe you need to take a survey. Rotary International suggests that you do a survey once a year. Why once a year? Because you always have new people coming in and you have people leaving. So that product, and that's what Rotary is delivering, they're delivering a product. That product is a club experience. You want to make sure that you're delivering the experience they want. So Stephanie loves the term simply irresistible. That's making our culture welcoming to people so they feel like they belong. So look at the trends. It's easy to go to a meeting and it's easy to go to a board meeting and talk about just the financials and the next service project or the next social that's coming up, but actually look at your numbers maybe every quarter to see where you're going. Then you need to work with your club And you actually need to set a plan. You can't get to a goal unless you set a plan, and you have to work that plan. Like Stephanie says, if it's just a hope, it's not a plan. So sit down with your membership team, figure out your goal. Maybe it's a net 3 growth. Well, you need to figure out, maybe you need to be by 6 new members so that you have a positive 3, because maybe at the end of the year, some people will leave. And then what you need to do is you need to talk about membership. You need to make sure that when you have your club board meetings, if you're a club president, don't just start with reviewing the minutes, looking at the financials, talking about what's coming up. Make sure you make membership a priority, because if you do make membership a priority, everyone's going to know you as a leader that's important to the club, and they're going to follow that. So promote membership. When someone brings a guest in, welcome the guest, maybe put up a poster, maybe put their face in the slideshow, but also thank the sponsor for bringing that person in. Maybe have a quarterly meeting that is dedicated to new members, where everyone brings their friends or their families or their neighbor or the people they work out with, or the people they work with or worship with. And then there's something that Rotary has called membership leads, where people actually contact Rotary International and say, I want to join Rotary. And maybe they're in your area, maybe they're right next door. So Rotary assigns them. And it's a very small percentage, less than 10%, that actually translate those leads into actual membership. So a lot of times this is not only low-hanging fruit, this is fruit on the ground you can just pick up. So when you get those things, follow up on them. And if you ever need help as a membership chair or a committee member, you could contact the district membership chair. There's also assistant Rotary coordinators and Rotary coordinators, and there's regional membership officers who are paid RI staff people, Rotary International staff people, that can help you. So just be thinking about membership, talk about membership, give awards for membership at the end of the year, make it important. And if you make it important, then the rest of the club will follow.
So these are actually things that Tom has just mentioned. We've just put them on a slide to give you a second look at them. And the next slide talks about working with your district membership chair, which Tom has also covered. Remember that, part of what we do is remind you to work with all the resources that you have available. But we want to talk now a little bit about attraction strategies. The first step in getting somebody to take a look at Rotary is to make your club attractive so that they take a look at it. And this means understanding why people join Rotary. People join Rotary for different reasons. When you think back to our founder, Paul Harris, in 1905, when he started Rotary, he didn't start Rotary because he would go out and do service projects. He started Rotary because he was looking for fellowship. He found himself in Chicago in a new area. He didn't know anybody. And so he asked 3 other gentlemen and said, let's get together and get to know one another. And the service came very much later. So Rotary itself actually does global surveys, and they ask questions about why people have joined. And this chart is showing you information from our last global survey. So you can see that Rotarians join for community service and friendship, and they end up staying for the same reason. On the flip side, Rotaractors join for the same reason, community service and friendship, but they also are looking for personal growth and professional development, especially because they tend to be younger and are early in their careers. 85% of Rotarians found their club because somebody invited them. Another Rotarian said, why don't you come to a meeting? While most Rotaractors find their club through some personal connection or from another Rotaractor. So think about that. If every Rotarian in our clubs brought just one new member, and that member stayed, think about how exponentially our membership numbers would increase. And finally, the last question on that survey was, how welcome do you feel? And in Rotary, 82% of the new Rotarians said we feel extremely welcome or very welcome. And 77% of Rotaractors reported feeling welcome in their club. So let's go to the next slide. I want to talk a little bit about value. You've heard me say this before. You know, Rotary is no different from a business. We have a product, and that product is our club meeting, our club experience. So it is really important for us to make sure that we understand why people are coming to Rotary so that we're better able to create the value that they seek. When people don't find value in an activity, they take off. I know I do as a consumer. If I don't like a product or I don't like a service, I get rid of it or I go find another one. And Rotarians are no different. They do the same thing. So we need to be clear about what the value of membership is and what people are expecting, and then deliver on it. So if we know what people expect from Rotary, we can better take a look at our programs, our speakers, our projects, our social events, and from time to time, then you're going to be better positioned to offer something that members will find valuable. The best way to figure out what people are looking for is to ask them, but ask them when they're coming in. You know, I've heard so many people talk about, doing exit interviews. Well, that's really a stupid time to ask people why, what they want from Rotary, because they've already made up their mind they're going to leave. And generally, people who were in Rotary are nice people. That's why we invited them in the first place. So they end up telling us what we want to hear instead of what we should hear. So my advice to you is get to know your members as they come into your Rotary Club. And that way you're better able to create the environment, create the culture that is going to be valuable for them. So Tom, talk a little bit about engagement strategies.
Well, Stephanie, you're absolutely right. We have to ask our folks, our members, what do they want out of the club? So when you ask that, you do the survey, and it's really not hard to do a survey. If you have a small club of less than 20 people, you could just pick up the phone and call people. You could ask them, do you like, when we meet? Do you like how we meet? Do you like our socials? Do you like our service projects? But if you don't ask them, then you're never going to know what they like or what they don't like. Now, if you actually have a club of 300 or 400 people, then you want to do a survey. So my Rotary, which is part of the Learning Center, part of the RI website, if you just type in there member satisfaction survey, you'll have a survey that you can give to your members that they can answer. There's a club health check that you can give to your board of directors, and it'll do the same thing. The important thing is to do it. And Stephanie's right. You don't do it, when we ask people, do they do surveys? Most clubs and districts don't. And when we ask them, when do they do the surveys, the ones that do, it's usually an exit interview. And Stephanie's right. They're not going to tell you the real answer. And also, you won't have time to fix it to retain that member. Now, if you go onto the website and you find out that those questions are too long, what you could do is you could just take those questions, you could modify them, shorten them up, and you could put them in a SurveyMonkey or some kind of other virtual platform when you send them out. And don't be upset that you don't have to worry that everyone's not going to be happy. When we do these surveys, only about 5% or less respond that they're somewhat dissatisfied or very dissatisfied. But the interesting thing is when you drill down as to why they're dissatisfied, it's really simple. It's usually because they don't like waking up at 7 o'clock in the morning to go to an 8 o'clock meeting. So if you look at our current clubs and you look at the time they meet, the place they meet, the format, the delivery, what you'll see is our current clubs usually meet Monday through usually Thursday, sometimes Friday. and they meet around a fixed cost meal that's usually at a hotel or at a country club. Now, if you look at the new places, the new clubs that are being formed, they usually don't have a fixed cost meal. They usually meet at a bar, usually at night, usually Tuesdays and Saturdays. There's a club in England that actually plays bridge on a Sunday. And if you look at the format, our traditional clubs are usually in-person or hybrid meetings. And most of the new clubs that are forming are actually virtual clubs. They're e-clubs. Now, why are we bringing this all up? We're not saying that you should all go out and start new clubs. What we're saying is, if you get a survey and it says, we don't like meeting so early in the morning, if there's 8 people out of a club of 80, you can easily start a satellite club. They're still members of your club. They just meet at a separate time. They still count towards your membership numbers. They still participate in your socials and your service projects. But these are just different things to consider. So then we go to club formation. So why do we talk about new clubs? Well, there are some benefits to new clubs. They grow Rotary quickly. They retain members longer than our traditional clubs. They attract younger and more diverse members, and they make Rotary more visible in our community. And they also give us an opportunity to partner. Now, you don't have to take my word for it. I'll just give you a few examples, but this is what we have seen. When I say Rotary grows quicker with these new clubs, because when you start a new club, you have to have at least 20 people. So when we started the Rotary Club of Network for Empowering Women, we added 50 members just like that to our district. Like Stephanie said in the beginning, to add 50 members to a club at one time, usually it would take a long time to add 50 members to our traditional club. So also, these new clubs retain members longer. Remember, we talked about the scary part about our numbers is people, they come in and it's a revolving door and they leave. Well, what we found out is these cause-based clubs, and a lot of the new clubs are cause-based clubs. What do I mean by that? I mean that they focus around a single cause, like the environment. This is a picture of our Rotary Club for Veterans. And so their speakers evolve around that cause. Their service projects revolve around that cause. Their fundraising is usually for that cause. And so when we have our traditional clubs that we talked about that are meeting at the hotel and the country club, people who are members of that club, like Stephanie and I, and we would never leave our legacy clubs, what I call traditional clubs, Stephanie calls them legacy clubs, because we have our friends there. But most of the people in those clubs either live or work within 10 to 15 minutes of that, where that club meets. These other clubs, this veterans clubs, people will drive 2.5, 3 hours to get to a service project, a blood drive, or a social. So they have that passion. And why is that important? Because that passion will keep them in there until they've been there 2 or 3 years. And then they're like all of us, they have their lifelong friendships, so they would never leave their club. Also, these new clubs have more diversity. You know, it's interesting, when I was district governor of my district, we were really trying to push for more female members, because we were trying to get from 30% to as high as we can get. Well, in that 1 year, we went from 30% to over 32%. And then at the end of the year, we were trying to figure out how we did that. And we looked at our clubs, and it turns out that our Eco Club had more than 50% females. The Rotary Club to End Human Trafficking that we started during that year had over 60% females. And our Rotary Club of Network for Empowering Women had almost 70% females. So those 3 clubs moved the needle in a way that we haven't been able to for years previous through our traditional clubs. Now, we don't keep race data, but I can tell you from being on a lot of meetings like this, our new clubs have more diversity, because you're going out and you're bringing people together who want to serve in a diverse environment. You know, if you talk to millennials, they want different ideas. They want new ideas. They don't want to be stagnant. Now, the other thing the new clubs do, they make you more visible. You actually are being seen in the community. So many people have heard the word Rotary, but they don't know what we do. Well, if we partner with other groups, then they get to see who we are, they get to know who we are, and we could form new clubs with them. When we started this club, the End Human Trafficking Club, which is the first of its type in the world, we actually were inducting a new member from Turkey. It's a virtual club. They meet online. And about 20 minutes after I inducted this new member, I received an email from the then sitting Rotary International president, Mark Daniel Maloney, and he told me that the person I just inducted was his sister. And he had been trying to get her into Rotary for 40 years, 40 years. But we just didn't have a club that met when she taught school during the day in Turkey, US history, so she could only meet at night. And she wanted to focus on the area of end human trafficking. If she was in a traditional club, they might have one speaker a year. They might maybe do a service project. Maybe the district would do one project a year. But she is now in a club where she gets to work on what she wants to work on. The last reason we form new clubs is because it increases partnership opportunities. You know, millennials they have passion, but they want to work on one area, such as the environment. So we went to the Rotary SRAG, the Environmental Sustainability Rotary Action Group, and we said, you're experts, you know how to fund projects, you know how to structure financing, do all that. Do you have any young people who are members who actually want to do grants, who want to get a district grant, who want to get their hands dirty and dig in the dirt? So they gave us a list of 120, and when we got to 30 members of those 120, we formed a new club. And these new clubs could be Rotaract clubs, or they can be Rotary clubs. So now we're at our favorite point. We'd like to take your questions.
But before we do that, let me give you one final comment. You know, Tom just spent a lot of time talking about forming new clubs, but let's face it, most of us on this call are in legacy clubs. And so when we think about membership, we really have to remember that there are two parts to membership: attraction and retention. And Tom's right. I'm very fond of using the term simply irresistible. We need to figure out what's going to make our local club simply irresistible. When that happens, membership challenges will take care of themselves, because people who are in your club will be so excited about being there, they're not going to go anywhere. They're going to love being in the club. And people who are outside will see what's going on and say, something's going on over there in that district. What are those clubs doing? I need to become a part of it. And the way that our clubs become simply irresistible is by, first of all, assessing and then figuring out where are the ways that we can make changes if necessary, little transformations that begin to push us in the direction of irresistibility. One of the tools that we have that's there for us to use is our action plan. Our action plan sets forward 4 priorities: that we want to increase our impact, we want to expand our reach, we want to engage participants in a much better way, and we want to increase our ability to adapt. There is no cookbook for the action plan. There is nothing that will come to you that says, here, do these things and you're going to be in compliance. The action plan is meant for every club to use it locally, because every club is different. The way you do Rotary in Canada is different than the way we do it in the United States, and different than the way they do it in India and Germany and Australia. It's different. In fact, you can have clubs in the same district that are different from one another. You can have clubs back to back, you know, the neighbors that are different, because every club has its own culture. So that's the final comment I have for you in thinking about membership and growth, and how we attract and how we retain members. And now we will open up for questions that you may have.
Okay, and we'll ask Suzanne to come on and moderate the Q&A.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Doug. Thank you very much, Stephanie and Tom, for this inspiring presentation. There are a few questions, I'm sure, while we're talking, then there will be some more. The first one was Sunil Sharma had a question about the percentage numbers that you gave, if they are based out of North America or globally. Or maybe Sunil, if you want to come on, unmute yourself and ask your question.
Thank you, Susan. You're given my question very clearly, so I expect answers from the leadership team.
Yes, Sunil, that survey is global. That means we're asking Rotarians around the world to answer those questions.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Mhm.
Thank you, Sunil. Shelley had a question if that simple survey is somewhere easily accessible.
Go
That
ahead.
survey that you had put up,
Mhm.
is that somewhere where we could access it and just send it out to our club?
It's available on my Rotary, and
Okay.
we can get you a link to it for sure.
Okay, I thought maybe. And also I wanted to quickly touch on something that Stephanie had said about for people who don't attend meetings and having like a catch-up meeting. Doesn't that kind of it tend to drive them away from regular meetings? They've got this excuse now, they can just catch up.
Well, you would think that that would be true, Shelley. In fact, that's the number one fear that most clubs have about looking at satellites. They say, oh, it's going to cannibalize our membership. People are going to go to the satellite instead of, coming. In my experience, that's not ever been the case. In my club, we didn't lose a single person to the impact group, not one. What it did is energize us as Rotarians, because now we feel that we have a mentorship responsibility and we have a role, and we serve as the seasoned Rotarians, if you will. So it did not have that impact whatsoever.
Wow, I love that, because we actually have some members that might be better off just working together and then coming back in and working with a bigger group because for whatever personality clashes. And I love that, as long as you don't lose people because of that. So thank
Not
you.
been our experience, no.
I
Thank
think it's a great way to engage those people that, hope to join but just can't make meetings and really have Rotary in their heart, but want to contribute in some way. We definitely, when we're recruiting new individuals, sometimes, find they can't make the commitment of every week or every second week, but they want to be involved. But actually making them Rotarians sounds like a great way to engage them. I like that.
Thank you. Well, Patrick wrote, why did you join your Rotary Club and why do you stay? He would love to hear your story.
Is that directed at me?
Yeah, well, both of you, I guess.
Oh, well, I was looking for fellowship. I had become divorced. And when you're married, you do married stuff together. You vacation together, you shop together, you go to church, you do married stuff together. So I had these big blocks of time, and a woman walked into my office. I was working for a university, and she said, hey, Stephanie, do you want to go to a Rotary Club meeting? And I looked at her and said, what the heck is Rotary? I'd never heard of it. And she started to give me the elevator speech, and she talked about Rotary and what it does. And when she got to the international part, my ears perked up because, I wanted to be a spy when I was growing up. So I thought, oh, wow, yeah, I got to go and see what this is all about. So I went to a meeting. I went to another meeting. By the fourth meeting, I was doing a newsletter. A year and a half later, I was club president, blah, blah, blah. But the reality is it was fellowship. I was looking to meet new people, but I stayed because of the service, because I had rolled up my hands and my arms, sleeves, and just got, my hands into all of the work that the club was doing. I got involved in, working on a youth exchange program, and then we did group study, and then, I got to go on NIDs. So it's the service that's kept me in Rotary. Tom, how about you?
I'll tell my story, and I think it's got 2 points. One, that you have to be flexible and how important flexibility is. And the other is persistence, which I think is important when we're talking about membership. So I actually tried to join Rotary in 1996. I was a assistant district attorney in Georgia. And Rotary would not let me in because my boss had the sole law enforcement classification. So she took that slot. So for 17 years, I wasn't in Rotary. And then I moved to Minneapolis. And the gentleman who lives across the street from me, who I work out with 3 times a week, he said, you got to come. And he asked me I was hurt that I wasn't accepted the first time. So I kept saying no. Then he asked me like 24 times. I said, okay, I'll go, just so he'd stop asking. And I went and I loved it. And it's been great ever since.
Well, thank you very much, both of you, sharing this story. It's amazing. Love it.
Todd's hand's been up for a long time. I think he's getting a cramp.
Okay, go ahead. I did not see that. I see a virtual hand up, but I didn't see a real hand on my little screen.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom. And actually, my elbow is resting on the arm of my chair, so I can sit here all day like this. I'm curious, we have a couple members, we're a club of about just over 40. We have a couple members who really never ever show up, but they're insistent on paying their dues and being members. And most clubs have a couple like this. I've been thinking of approaching them. We've had a really positive year in membership growth this year. I've been thinking of approaching them this June and saying, hey, how about you stop your membership? We'll call you a friend of Rotary. We'll put a plaque on your wall that says you're a friend of Rotary. And instead of spending your membership fees, support us even more than you do now. They do write the odd check for our events, and they do come out to some of our socials. They may come out to environmental cleanup. They come the odd time, but they really, and our city now has all the possible meeting times you could have. They're really not into coming to Rotary meetings. They just want to be a Rotarian, or what they call Rotarian, and they want to participate the odd time. Is there a membership class that we can put someone like that in, so they're a full member as far as paying their dues, but and we don't have enough of them to make a cause-based club, and we did have a satellite for a while. That didn't help out them. They didn't want to come to a satellite either. So I'm just curious if there's a class that we can put them into.
So we had a slide in here that talked about all the different kind of memberships, from corporate membership to you name it. And typically those situations will be where you give a discount to a second person. Let's say it's associate member who's a young person who wants to check it out for a month or two before she or he joins. Or it's a situation where it's a corporate situation where you have one person who can't come all the time. But I would ask them what they want out of the clubs. We had a situation in our club where it was very similar to that. And when we started a new project, we started a Rotary Community Corps for the Afghan refugees. And several of them came back because they saw a new service project that they want to get involved in, and they just weren't interested in doing the other meetings that we're having or the other socials we're having. But it's interesting because once they started doing that service project, then they came back full time. So I would ask them what they want. We talked about, and Rita had a question about how often you should do a survey. Rotary says, it was in the chat, once a year you should do a survey, but also think of the survey as a tool you can use. So Todd, we had someone, a president in my district, call last year saying we have a club of 22 people and half want to do away with the four-way tests and half want to keep the four-way test. So he was asking for advice. I said, well, do a survey and call me back. He did the survey, and it turns out that only 2 people were interested in doing away with the four-way test. They were just louder people. they were pushing the issue more than everyone else. So you can use the survey as a tool to go back to the club and say, okay, we heard that this is an important issue. We surveyed you, and what we found out is only a small percentage wanted to change this. So that would be my suggestion.
Thank you very much. I see Brenda has her virtual hand up. So,
I do.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Stephanie, and hi, Tom. Thank you so much for this session. It's been great. And I'm the district governor-elect, so it's really been, I've been taking a lot of notes because you've given us some great ideas. But a few things that I'd like to share, and what I find with Rotarians is we're a little bit shy, especially as Canadian Rotarians. We tend to be, a little bit shy about talking about Rotary to other people. And I've always encouraged people within our club and Rotarians I know to do tap on people's shoulders. And I've been doing that for years. And actually, I actually got a pin for bringing the most members into my club because I started tapping on people's shoulders. And when I was talking to people, I would say to them, oh my gosh, have you heard of Rotary? You'd be a wonderful Rotarian. their face would light up and they say, really, like, first they didn't know what it was quite often, but I think it's really important that we just talk to people and tell our story and how excited we are about it and invite them to a meeting. And I always invite them. Would you like to come to a meeting, be my guest? And they usually say yes. So I think we have.
Oh, Brenda, you went to mute.
And another thing that another initiative I'm going to do in my year is go have our club presidents and our assistant governors and anybody else go to their local mayor and councilors on a council night and have a 5 or 10 minute presentation to the mayors, telling them about Rotary, who we are, we're in your community, how much money we've raised, who we give it to, and what we do. And the last thing would be, how can we help you? Because we're here to help. And that's going to start at least giving more of a face locally, because sometimes the meetings are televised, they have local reporters there, and get our name out. So we're going to do that. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Great. Those are all great ideas, Brenda. You know, one of the things that I can suggest also is that sometimes it's better to invite a prospect to a social or a service project than it is to a meeting. Because think about some of our meetings. When we get in there, we start talking in Rotary-ese and we're throwing acronyms around and we're talking about, you know, club act. And, you know, a person who's new to Rotary might look around and say, what the hell am I doing here? I don't know what they're talking about. So, but if you take them to a service project where we're actually doing the work of Rotary, you know, it might be a different kind of experience for them. So, you know, I would encourage you to think about, you know, ways that you might be able to do that. But I have to agree with you that most Rotarians are uncomfortable talking about Rotary. And when they do, you know, they tend to talk, I don't know how to explain it. There's not an excitement. Yeah, I'm in a Rotary Club. I mean, come on, you know, you have to be exciting. Last week, Tom and I were in Calgary. We were doing a site visit for the convention, and we were there 3 days. And by the end of the 3 days, I had recruited 3 young people who are our guides, talking about Rotary and just about how much fun we're going to have and about, you know, the convention and what we do in Rotary. And I didn't ask them about joining Rotary. They said, you know, I'd really like to get involved in this group. It sounds fantastic. But it's because there was an enthusiasm. As I talked about what we did, I got so excited about it. So I think you're right. We have to do that. We have to convey the excitement of being a Rotarian and the fact that we're creating lasting change in our communities and around the globe. And when we can communicate that excitement to people, I think that's what's going to hook them. That's where they're going to get attracted.
I totally agree with Stephanie. I feel like we have 2 jobs as Rotarians, whatever we're assigned to do or appointed to do or volunteer to do, and then telling people about it. And Stephanie's always fond of saying, we can't just talk to ourselves, you know, at PETs and district conferences and institutes. We need to talk to the rest of the world.
Thank you for those comments and answer the question for Brenda. I couldn't agree more, and I have to remind myself that the ones that we talk to in the clubs, we're already in the clubs, but we have to talk outward to the world. So thank you for that reminder. Mike Shri has a question. He asks, who's responsible for creating, updating, and deciding functions of a committee?
You know, Stephanie and I talk about this a lot, and what we've decided is best in our experience is ask the committee what they want to do. You know, if the committee is going to grow Rotary and grow your club, or if it's a district committee, grow the membership in the district, let them do what they think is good. I mean, we usually have 1 or 2 people who bring in 80% of the people inside the club. If you have a team that has interesting ideas, then think of those ideas. But you could also ask other people what to do. You can see what other clubs. If you look at successful clubs, I look at my wife's club, and every quarter they have a new member day where everyone's expected to bring their friends. They also have a Black business networking where they meet at a Jamaican restaurant. You know, let the committee do what they want to do. They'll have great ideas. But if you don't, talk to your district membership chairs, talk to the clubs around you, talk to your RMOs, talk to your assistant Rotary coordinators and your Rotary coordinators, or call Stephanie and I, and we'll give you some ideas.
And you know, we have to resist the urge as seasoned Rotarians to say, oh, that's not going to work. Oh, that'll never work. Or, oh, we tried that before. We have to let the young Rotarians, the new Rotarians, the young professionals to come in and to feel a part of the environment and to try things. That's why we call in Rotary, we call things pilots. We test it as a pilot because it may work or it may not work. And if it doesn't work, it just means we found something that isn't going to work and we move on to try something that will work. So we really have to let people do their own thing. You know, when Tom and I are talking about culture, I frequently tell a story about when I was a young woman, I would go out disco dancing and I'd wear platform shoes that were like 8 inches, 20 centimeters high. And my father would grab me by the sleeve and he'd say, where in the hell are you going in those? You're going to kill yourself. And I'd say, Dad, we all know how to dance in them. We all know how to walk in them. Don't worry, it's going to be fine, because that's the way we did it. And that is a reminder to myself that as younger Rotarians are coming in, they're going to want to do Rotary differently than me. And that's okay. As long as they keep the core values of Rotary in place, fine. I don't care how they do it. The fact is they're going to do it because I'm not going to be here forever. I love Rotary, but I won't be here forever. And I want to make sure that there are people lined up behind me who are going to continue the magic of what we do. It's just too important. So we really need to give them an opportunity to come in with their ideas, the way they want to do things, and try things and see if it will work.
And on that note, maybe you go out into your community and you say, what do you want to do? If you could design a Rotary Club that meets when it wants to, meet all those potential people of action out there, let them decide what they want to do. They might want to meet only twice a month instead of 4 times a month. They might want to meet online. They might want to meet at a bar. They might want to meet around bee pollinators and work on that. There's people who might want to ride, who wants to do service, but they might want to ride their bicycles instead of having a meal. So we have to ask the community, not just the Rotarians.
Thank you very much for that. It's getting close to, 7:30 here, 6:30 your time. I have one more question maybe from Shelley. And she writes, what would you suggest when there is friction in the club and membership outreach has come to a halt?
Well, conflict resolution is a whole other topic for a whole other session, Shelley. However,
yeah, I've already experienced some. It was actually good timing when I got some at PETS training, actually.
Yeah, so, there is a course on the Learning Center about conflict resolution, and there are lots of things that we've learned in our professional life that transfer into Rotary. Rotary is no different than our jobs. It's people. And wherever you have people, you're 9 times out of 10 going to have some kind of personality or other kind of conflict. So my best advice to you is to use the skills that you've developed in your job, in your profession, in your career, in your family, because the same set of ideas and circumstances are going to work in your Rotary Club as they do in that other situation. And in the meantime, do check out the Learning Center. The Learning Center has 1,074 courses in it. They're not all about Rotary. Some of them are about life skills, about time management, project management, conflict resolution. So, you as a member have access to the Learning Center and can get in there. So jump in there and take a look at the table of contents. And I'm sure you're going to find something that will help you take a look at that situation and figure out how to diffuse it.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Suzanne, for moderating that session. Lots of interaction and sharing ideas. And of course, thank you so much to Stephanie and Tom for sharing their unique ideas on how we can grow Rotary, strengthen Rotary, some different types of membership categories, different types of club. So I think all of us can go away tonight with some great ideas and takeaways. Two that I had, and one is that as leaders, we have to make membership a priority, because what gets focus from the leadership grows. So I think we got to encourage all of our district leaders and especially our club presidents to always be bringing up membership and encouraging members and recognize them for bringing guests and prospects. And the second point I got was, it's not new, but it's to make your club irresistible, and people will be attracted, and then let Rotary sell itself. Because once, as Stephanie said, a member gets to participate in a service project, they will want to get hands-on, get their fingers and hands dirty. And so after all, we've seen the statistics. They all want to come and make a meaningful difference in the community. So create some projects, if you don't have any, to promote the hands-on opportunities, and then invite people to those first. And then, of course, social events and the meetings. So thank you so much again to the two presenters. And we look forward to seeing you down the road. And thanks to all of our Rotarians and even out of District 7080 guests tonight for joining us. We hope you found it worthwhile. And just a reminder that, again, tomorrow night we have another club leadership session. And you'll see the information and the link to that on the Rotary 7080 community page on Facebook. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank
Hi,
you so much.
everybody.
Thank you. Have a good evening, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think that